All right. That awkward moment when you're inviting folks into the call. I like when people get to just stare at me trying to work my phone like an old person. Hey, folks. We'll get started in a few minutes. Sorry, we're starting a little bit late. Make sure I actually invited Caroline. Hi, Colin. You'd think these things would get easier. I should do them more often. Oh, there we are. So that I get more used to it. And slash, I can talk to you. All. There we are. Let me try it again. Technical difficulties. My least favorite part. I feel like I should be playing music. It reminds me of when I was a teacher way back in the day. Let's see. That awkward moment when you're waiting for your student. They're waiting for the class to start, especially that first day. And you try and make small talk. Super great when okay, Caroline is invited. How are you all doing tonight as we're waiting for technology to work? If you have any questions for Caroline or myself, feel free to put them in the chat.
Okay. For some reason, it just didn't work at first, even though we practiced.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't load.
The other funny thing is that my headphones don't work anymore, so that's cool.
Why? They
I don't know.
did.
I don't know. There's probably a button I need to touch, but now I'm afraid because we have actual people coming in. We should pretend that we didn't just have like 15 minutes of small talk and do that while folks are joining us. How are you?
I'm chilling, you know. It's like kind of fucked up outside here, but like, so I didn't really go outside today. But pretty. I've been watching Vanderpump Rules all day, so I feel like my mind is a blank slate.
Well, great. Great. You're prepared for this interview. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can get started since we're a little bit late anyway. So I guess I'll introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Sean Watkins. I'm the owner of Athenium Comic Art. I am not a cartoonist, unfortunately. I pretend that I can draw sometimes, but instead I sell original art from some of the most exciting cartoonists in the business, like Caroline. We're actually about to hit our second year anniversary in August, and I'm hoping to do a lot of chats with of our fabulous cartoonists. So, feel free to follow the account, and we'll be sharing some times and details a little bit later. We tend to be a little bit last minute with some of these things, so I apologize in advance. But these are all recorded, so we're excited to be able to talk to folks and celebrate art together. But yeah, feel free to check out the website atheniumcomicart.com if you want to see some fabulous art like Caroline Cash's. So just to introduce Caroline today, Caroline is an Ignatz, award-winning cartoonist, an author of Girls in the World, the Pee Pee Poo Poo series. It just rolls off my tongue every time I get to say it. It's very exciting. And is now, it's very exciting, is working on a full-length graphic novel for Drawn Quarterly, which maybe we can talk about later, or maybe not.
We can, like, I'm down. There's no like NDA or anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like spoil what happens, but I can tell you the concept. But
Cool. Well, let's start at the. Oh, actually, that big announcement came out last week, which was really exciting. We also wanted to share with folks for the first time that we are doing a cool event at Partners in Sun on Friday, October 13th. Friday the 13th, we'll be doing a gallery show with Caroline and MS Harkness. So if you all are in the Philly area, feel free to stop by. We're planning on having some exciting treats for you all. Yes, I was reading that book today. So amazing, so good. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the event. I know we're still working out some of the details.
I'm really excited about it. MS is a good friend of mine, and I'm really excited about her new book that's coming out with Fantagraphics, and I think our work looks really good together. And you represent both of us, so it was kind of a no-brainer to have a show together. And I really like Gina, and I was lucky to do an event at Partners and Sons a couple months ago, and it was just a blast, and it was so fun. So it's like and just like the layout of the shop is really nice, and it just feels like a perfect place to have a gallery show. And I really like their shelves that they have in the shop. They're really nice. You're gonna like them. But since it is on Friday the 13th, and it's the day before the comic show in Philadelphia that we're all tabling at too, so it feels kind of perfect. I don't know. I really, fingers crossed, I want us to get a tattoo to work in the shop and give everyone Friday the 13th tattoos. But, we're going to try and figure that out,
Yeah, well, maybe I'll get my first tattoo. Although I think you started a rumor that I had a Green Lantern tattoo.
I did. I think I got really stoned and then mixed you and my friend Ryan up. And I was like, Ryan has the Green Lantern ring and Sean has the Green Lantern tattoo. And I was just wrong,
Maybe I need to have you design a Green Lantern tattoo for me, and I'll get like a full back of it.
That would be pretty epic.
We'll see.
Sick.
Well, cool. Yeah. So hopefully folks can join us there October 13th. MS Harkness, Carolyn Cash, and Athenium. And not all of your, but a lot of original art will be hanging up on the walls in there. So I think some of it will be for sale. So please join us. Exciting announcement. So cool. Let's jump into our conversation. Tonight is going to be pretty loose. We have some questions and things, and folks submitted questions as well. Feel free to shoot thoughts into the chat if you'd like. But I thought we'd start just by having you talk a little bit about your journey as an artist. Where'd you start? How'd you get into comics, etc.?
I always really liked comics, and when I was a kid, I made comics like all the time for fun. Most of them were about like a group of like sentient tennis balls, and it was like kind of fucked up and random. But so I made a bunch of those, and they were kind of also styled after Archie comics. So they were like tennis balls that could talk, but then it was Archie too. So it made a lot of sense. And it was just mostly like bad tennis jokes for some reason. But I went to like a public arts middle and high school, and then I went to art school, and I was doing fine art for quite a bit of time because I was just, for some reason, under the impression that um, that was like the thing that you do to be a real artist, is you make a little oil painting and you know, draw something really well, which for sure that rules. But when I moved to Chicago, I started slowly drawing comics again for the first time since I was like a kid. And then especially, I think I really started when I was like 20. I was like, okay, I'm like a sophomore in college. I'm going to take a couple comics classes because this school offers it. My friend Mason, Gabe Mason Howell, his comic, he puts Gabe on all of his comics. So my friend Gabe Howell.
Great comic.
Yeah, really amazing cartoonist. I met him when we were both 18, and he was like, Scott Pilgrim looks like trash. You should read good stuff. And I was like, I like Scott Pilgrim. I still like Scott Pilgrim. He thinks it looks bad. I think he's wrong. But he he showed me like Daniel Klaus and Chris Ware and, all the guys who lived in Chicago, Jeffrey Brown, who ended up being me and Gabe's professor later on. All of like the guys you would think of from the 90s,
Right.
And now, and now for sure. But like, from that one specific, I feel like all of the books I was reading were the books they put out in the 90s, as kind of like my introductory to comics that weren't like the weekly Shonen Jumps that I was reading,
Yeah.
So that was good. And then I took comics classes. My first two were with Paul Nudd and Jessica Campbell, who are both really good. And they were both really encouraging. And there's a big comic scene in Chicago, and I was really interested in printmaking, and I still am. In college, that was like my main thing outside of comics. And so I was making these comics, and then I had the ability to print them all myself relatively cheaply. So then I could sell them and give them away. So either like sell a comic for $3 or give it away. It's not that big of a difference. Like you're not going to make a huge it's not a big price margin between, losing $3 and giving it to someone for free. So I was able to like do that at Zine Fests here, and I like went to Cake. I didn't table at it yet, but like I went to it and I had a blast, and I got way too stoned, and then I was nervous, so I had to leave. But, I was like around comics and doing self-publishing stuff, which I still do, and it rules. And just like slowly over time, I made more and more stuff, and, just kind of, the classic self-publish forever, give your stuff to people, then you're published. It all works out. But,
it all works out. And then you get a Drawn Quarterly deal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right? It's an easy point A to point B, and then you're done.
And then you just got to keep doing it,
keep doing it,
and then you get another one, and whatever. But so I don't know. I've been making comics seriously for 7 years, I guess, is the trajectory.
Wow, only 7 years. It feels like you're such like a established, like your style is so established. It feels like you've been around longer than 7 years.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've grown tremendously too. I was just looking at some of your work today to prepare for this conversation. I think I love this. This is the first book that introduced you to me, a girl in the world. And I feel like obviously you can see your style in this book, but comparing this to Pee Pee Poo Poo is a huge, I think, change and sort of refinement in what your style is. Does that connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, Girl in the World was my first long story. Like before I had made that, I had made, maybe like a bunch of 8 to 12 page comics because I was trying to teach myself how to write. I was trying to learn how to write short form because people smarter than me told me that writing short form comics is a great way to start off, because if you the first time you try and write a comic and you're like, I'm going to make a 120 page space opera comic, like that, not very many people are going to actually be able to do that on their first go round, you know. So yeah. I really stuck to mini comics because I really like mini comics, and so when I pitched that book to Sprocket, actually I had made an 8-page mini comic that was like the first 6 pages plus another 2 that like tied it up differently, you know. And I was like, I think that this would be, you know, girls hanging out, I can write a lot about that. I'll pitch that as the book. So I learned a lot making that book, so I had never done that before, and it was a big trial and error thing, and I was also learning how to use Photoshop and everything, and I was learning how to use the Lightbox, and I was, you know, I knew how to ink, but that was about it. So I was learning a lot as I went, and so I feel like making a 70-page book was a great way to get better and then continue at it. But
what do you think of Girl in the World now that you know, it's been a few years since it came out? Is it something that you're still, you know, obviously you learned a lot through that process.
Yeah.
You know, I think some folks, when they look back, it's like, or they look back and they say, wow, like, it's still pretty good, you know, like I'm different now, I'm better now, but it's still pretty good. How do you view your work in the past?
I'm at a point where I kind of view Girl in the World like very, like in a really sentimental way. After I made it, there was a full year where I didn't want to look at it at all, just because I did it during like my senior year of college, and I was really just like, by the end of it, really burnt out from that and like college and life and stuff. And I kind of gave myself like carpal tunnel working on it a little bit. But my friends like would come over when I was like really in crunch time, and you know, they would like erase the pencil from the pages for me while I was like furiously trying to do the color. Because I did another learning thing is I did all the color separation separately. Yeah. So I did like the ink on one page, and then I would use a Lightbox and do color pencil on like 1 or 2 pages for some of it, and paint markers too. So I just made it a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. So especially when I was getting stuff ready to be scanned, it was really sweet. My friends would come over and erase pages and stuff for me, and while I was like really hoping that the Posca paint markers wouldn't like run out of ink. But I don't know, I reread it. I didn't look at it for a year, and then I like reread it, and I was like, oh, that was funny. I forgot about that joke. Or like, oh, that was so much fun to draw, you know? Yeah. So I think, and especially when we put out the second edition, I was really, really happy with how the second edition turned out. Karina Taylor, who's Sprocket's like book designer, did a really good job with like the new size and the embossed text. And I'm really, really, and we added like a page or 2, and we fixed the one misspelled word that drove me crazy that got past everyone for the first edition. So I don't know. I don't feel self-conscious about it, and I don't feel angry or upset about it or anything, because I know some cartoonists look at like their first stuff like not super fondly, but I don't know. You know, I'm like, my cute first thing. Yay.
I mean, folks love it. Even in the chat here, people are saying they really enjoy it. And, you know, this is what really drew me to you, right? Like I read this and I wanted to see everything else that you know, were putting out into the world. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your kind of relationship with Silver Sprocket. You know, you said that you had pitched this book. I think folks would love to hear kind of the process of that. And I know that things probably are different with Silver Sprocket than they were back then. They've grown quite a bit. But I'd love to hear more about your sort of, I wouldn't call it partnership, but you work with them a lot. You
Yeah,
table with them sometimes. Yeah,
they're a constant collaborator. I love everybody who works for them. They're all so sweet and so thoughtful. Um, I started working with them, I guess officially in like 2018, so it's a totally different process now, kind of.
yeah,
But I first met them in 2016 because they were at Chicago Zine Fest, and I had given a copy of my first like mini comic that I made. It's called I'm So Punk. I have like a nice I made like a couple editions of it, and I have like a nice
yeah,
big edition of it now, kind of. But it was like a 5-page stapled once square zine about this big.
yeah, yeah.
And I gave it to a cartoonist that I really admire, Isabel Rotman, and then she was like, "Oh my God, my friend Avi would like this. You should go give one to them." And I was like, "Yeah, of course, sounds good. I'm just hanging out at Zine Fest. I'll go give this to them." And I gave it to Avi, and Avi was like, "Ha ha ha, do you want something?" And I was like, "Oh, you'll trade me a real book that looks bound in a nice way that's like full color for this tiny offset printed comic I made.
Yeah,
So then every time I would see them at like Cake or Chicago Zine Fest or really any event where we both were at, I would just trade with them whatever my new thing was, or whatever I was working on. I would give them a copy, and then they would just let me pick whatever Silver Sprocket book I wanted. And this was back when they weren't nice hardcover ones.
yeah, yeah,
This is like mini comic zone. And so that was just like a nice trade, and I didn't do it thinking I was gonna have a book with them or anything. I just
sure.
did it because I really liked them, and I liked getting free comics from them, and I just liked giving stuff I was working to people who I thought were doing cool things. And then eventually I was like really drunk at SPX, at my first SPX, and they were like, "You should pitch to me," and I like didn't take them seriously because I was like, "I'm drunk. No one would ask me to do this while I'm drunk," because I was like 23, and drunk at SPX. And then afterwards, they were like, "No, I was serious. Pitch me the book if you have an idea." And then I pitched them Girl in the World, and it worked
Yeah,
out. So, but now they're publishing. I mean, for the most part, it seems like Sprocket is interested in publishing stuff that is by creators who have already self-published before.
mhm,
So they already kind of have like an idea of how it works.
yeah,
They love doing second or third editions of stuff that's already fully been self-published because when you
right.
see a project that someone made maybe 50 copies of that you think is amazing, and then you want to help them print it. I can totally see, the thought process behind it.
Yeah,
And then lately Sprocket, they were telling me about this at Cake, but Sprocket put up a mini comic submission. So like they're accepting pitches for mini comics, like an open submission, and they haven't had the staff honestly and like the time to do
yeah,
open submissions like that before.
right.
And they're trying to do it twice a year. So I think it's like going to be or maybe once or twice a year, like a summer winter mini comics submission where they will read your pitches and probably pick 1 or 2 or 7 or 0 people to publish.
Yeah,
So highly recommend anyone to pitch to them because working with them rules, and they're really transparent and kind and helpful, genuinely. So I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I love everything about Silver Sprocket. I think some of the best books are coming out of Sprocket right now by far.
Yeah.
And they've really built just such a positive energy in the community. It's funny. Back, I met Avi at TCAF, not this past one, but the one before, and I was just kind of at the Silver Sprocket table, pointing to my spouse Deborah. I was just pointing out all the artists that I work with, and Avi was like, "Are you that Athenia guy?" And that led to us collaborating on Rosemarie's book event where we did like a gallery, and Avi wants me to like put together a book of like process stuff, like just super amazing. I always feel like you have a great connection with Sprocket, and I'm always excited to see what kind of creative ideas that you all are coming up with. Because I feel like whenever I talk to Avi or anybody at Sprocket, it's just always like this creativity is at the forefront, and community as well. It just makes me so excited about this world, Yeah,
definitely. And the new lineup looks amazing, and there's some stuff I can't spoil, but there's going to be some really cool new comics coming up, and I don't know. I feel like everyone at Sprocket is just working so dumb hard, all the time, and it really shows, It's really, really nice to work with them. So
yeah. Well, and this conversation connects with the cartoonist community. And you had mentioned earlier that, while you were making Girl in the World, you had friends come over and they were erasing things for you. I know it kind of feels like, as a outsider, insider, talking about myself in the as a non-cartoonist that is sort of in the comics world, it feels like there's these sort of pockets of communities in different cities, right? The Columbus folks, Chicago, New York folks, San Francisco folks, with overlap, of course. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about community and cartooning, and what that looks like to you, and what you'd like the space to look like. A lot of questions.
Yeah. I mean, my friends who came over and helped me erase stuff were friends who don't make comics, which is also
just
very sweet. But they were like, just my sweet friends. But yeah, I feel like the comic community is great. I feel like it could be better. I feel like it's getting better.
Yeah.
I feel like there's, more and more people, figuring kind of like what works, figuring, what's cool, what's not cool, just like in regards of how to treat each other. I really like all of like the smaller comic fests and zine fests that have been popping up lately. I think that's really cool. I think that's a really good community aspect that's come around since like all the bigger fests, for a while were obviously canceled because of COVID.
Right.
But I do consider a lot of indie comic spaces to sometimes be like a little bit of a boys club, just like a little bit, shocking. I know that would be my opinion, but I don't think that's overall, and I think it's getting better.
Well, it was interesting when you were talking about the first books that you were introduced to, in terms of like more of the alt indie scene. It's a lot of men, right? Yeah. And it seems like there are more voices out there now, but perhaps they're not always the folks who are getting the big deals, right? Or being able to like live off of
right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to me that even this year, I've seen multiple comics anthologies that like don't even have a single girl, like big ones, big ones. Big in the indie world that don't even have like a single person who's not a dude in the lineup.
Right.
And it's like, or it's like how a certain convention that I'm just not going to name, like had an indie row of like 70 plus indie creators for their, big convention. Because it was for a bigger one. Their artist alley or whatever for their indie people. And out of all the special guests, the people that they invited, the 25 names on the poster were all guys' names.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not even one,
Yeah.
like not even aren't even thinking far enough to like tokenize one person, But I've gotten a little bit of flack for being annoyed by this, which
why? I mean, it seems to me one of the exciting things about comics in general is watching young people kind of come to it, right? This new audience of young folks, many of which are going to manga instead of the traditional comics. But it seems like there's, especially in like the YA world, there's more of a diversity of voices. Not perfect by any means, but there are more people of color, I would argue, more women than in kind of mainstream comics for sure. And so for me, it would seem like the more folks you have creating and the more diverse folks you have creating, the more that the books can reach out to a larger audience, to the different audiences, right?
Yeah, and like I feel like people are really interested and really into comics right now, and the more people making comics, the better, and it just grinds my gears a little bit that like the loudest people in the room are still, on the boys club shit, but what can I say?
Well, I think I mean it is upsetting. Like we're putting together a comic show here in Ann Arbor, A2CAF, if folks are interested in the Midwest. It's actually the weekend before, it's the 7th, the weekend before our Partners in Sun event. And that's one of the things that the library and I've talked a lot about, is making sure that we have a variety of voices in what we're doing, right? And you'd think that there has been a lot of, and I don't know, I mean, there's been a lot of controversy at the like internal comics level where folks are kind of having these conversations. I don't know how widely it goes beyond kind of the small communities around different cons that have had, issues with diversity or issues around including folks who may have problematic pasts when it comes to like sexual assault and things like that. You would imagine that these conversations have to, you'd hope that they would be something that's going on. I know that shows are complicated, big events. But even my little dabbling into it, there seems to be I'm a little bit older, I'm older than you, but the folks that are running some of the shows that I've been, kind of interacting with tend to be a little bit of a generation above me, and they just have a different idea of what comics are.
Yeah, and I definitely think all of this stuff, again, is getting, like, way better, and I'm sure it's way better than it was, a minute ago as well.
Yeah.
It just, and I think that's where it could be better,
Yeah, for sure.
But
well, in terms of community, in the sense of, I think I don't know, maybe before we got on the live stream, we were talking about working in isolation, right? The cartoonist's plight of kind of, spending a lot of time on a book before it's shared out with the world. How has the cartoonist community supported you in your work?
I've been pretty embraced by the comics community, especially the comics community here in Chicago and in the Midwest and Columbus and I don't know, just I feel like people have been very, very kind to me and very supportive and enthusiastic about my work. I have there's so many people who I don't know. I feel like I just have been so helpful, especially just like every stage of the way. Like when I was starting out, after my first book came out, today, yesterday, you know. I don't know. It's really fun to be a part of a community where everyone gets really excited about each other's projects, like quite earnestly. You know, it's like I feel like a lot of independent cartoonists like are all just comics fans, you know, they're all just comic nerds. And so they get really excited about comics that they want to read. And when you're making a comic that they want to read, then, you know, they're going to shout about it, which is great. And then when they make a comic that you're excited to read, then you're also going to be doing the same thing. So that's really, I don't know. I feel like especially so much of it is just word of mouth. It's like go into the comic book store with my friend and I see a Fantagraphics book I'm really excited about on the wall. And I'm like, you have to read that right now. Sorry, you know, or like vice versa. And I feel like especially working at Quimby's bookstore for like 3 years, I got to see a lot of that, both like for myself, like my friends, you know, hyping each other's stuff up, and then like people I don't know hyping their stuff up, and you know, hyping their friends' work, and you know, just enthusiastically showing people comics they really like, and telling them what they like about it, you know. I think that's like huge. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you share works in progress with folks, or are you mostly, when you're sharing comics, is it mostly like here's a physical comic, here's something that's done, or are you ever looking for feedback from your peers, or is it mostly you do it and then you give them the final thing?
I was in art school for so long, like in one way or another, that I'm not shy about asking for feedback at all, and I'm never gonna get like butthurt about a critique or anything, like especially if I've asked for it. Like I'm 100% fine with sharing in progress stuff with people. And I usually when I'm working on something, you know, with like Pee Pee Poo Poo right now, you know, it's a series that I'm doing with Sprocket. I obviously show it to Ari, who is the Sprocket editor. They're really cool. And I showed it to Avi and Karina too, like the in progress stuff. But I also, you know, I work a lot in my living room. I live with my girlfriend, Lily. She walks into a room and I'm writing a comic page. I'll always be like, Lily, can you read this page to me and tell me if it makes sense at all? You know?
Yeah.
Or like if my friends are over and I'm like, oh my God, dude, Gabe, will you look at this comic and tell me if I used any words 7 times on the same page, you know? Like, I feel like I get a couple of very casual but helpful lookovers before I send it to the Sprocket team. And I'm working on some stuff now. I'm working on an anthology right now. And I've been sending I'm going to be sending the pages that I'm working on for it to the other people for like a little bit of feedback once I scan them, you know?
Yeah.
And that'll be more like drawing feedback too, which is nice. But I do feel like the majority of the feedback I ask for is with writing. Unless I'm like does this perspective look okay, or do I really need to redraw it? You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
We're jumping all over the place, but
Yeah.
sorry. This is just how we talk normally. So welcome everybody to our
Totally.
normal conversations. So you mentioned that you went to art school a few times and that you were studying maybe. Were you studying fine art, or was that just part of your program?
That was, it was like fine art from like 11 to 18, and then it was like print media.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it seems like in the community there are different feelings about the need to go to art school, the sort of value in it. How was your experience, and does that experience paint the way that you approach your work? You already mentioned that you were more open to critique because you've been through that experience, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to hear, how you view that time, and if you feel like it was valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned a lot. I don't think people need to go to art school, especially when they're making comics. I really don't think they need to go to art school. I think I went to art school kind of like accidentally in that way, where it's like if I had known I just wanted to make comics and like stick to it, I probably wouldn't have,
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't regret going to art school. I learned a lot. I had a mostly good time, and I had really, especially I met some really amazing cartoonists through it who were my professors and who were my like classmates, and or the upperclassmen or whatever. Like I feel like I was really surrounded by a very, very good group of people. It was just all of like the school part of it that was really frustrating. Like, I don't know. It's expensive. There's all this bullshit you have to do. It's parts of it are bad. So don't really think you need to go to school for comics, but you can definitely learn a lot at school, I guess. I don't know. Does that make sense? I feel very lucky to have gone, but I'm not trying to go to. I like if I'm ever like I'm going to masters, like I'm gonna go get my master's degree. Like it's like wellness check time, I feel. I'm trying to avoid that, but.
Yeah, I was interested in it. I perpetually went to school for a very long time, mostly as a working class kid that didn't know what else to do with themselves, and it's an interesting question. Speaking of finances, I'm always interested in talking to artists about generally. How do you make it in the comics book world, right? It's my understanding is that folks are not paid very well in comics across the board, and that's one of the things that one of the reasons I started at Athenium was because I was collecting art, and I realized, well, artists were not valuing their art as much as they should, but B, folks were selling art partially just to survive, and I wanted to be able to kind of in my little way help take a little bit of the work away from bringing in a little bit of extra income. But for someone who comes up and says, hey, how do I survive in comics? What would your answer be?
The way I feel like everyone I know makes it work a little bit differently, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
most of people have another job or two, and pretty soon I might need to get a second job besides comics, but I'm making it work for right now. And the way I've done it is my rent is $500 a month, and I have like weekly, or not weekly, I have like monthly commissions that I do for a couple of different people like every month. I draw a bunch of posters around Chicago. I have some like constant character design stuff, and just always some random commission as well, right? There's always someone who emailed me and was like, can you draw this thing? And most of the time it's pretty cool, honestly. Like, I feel like the commissions I get are from people who like my work already. So they're just like, you want to draw this thing? I think you'd like drawing. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. Actually, that sounds really fun. I've never had like a commission horror story that I've had to draw. You know, like I feel like the small handful of times people have, you know, asked me to do something that I didn't want to do, I just didn't do it, and that's fine. But you know, just keeping monthly costs really low, and then on top of that, like I, you know, it was self-publishing a lot while I did have a day job, and I was kind of keeping that money separate and saving it. So I had, when I went freelance, I had a nice little chunk of change. I mean, the first edition of Pee Pee Poo Poo, I self-published, and I printed it completely myself, and me and my girlfriend Lily screen printed it ourselves, and a lot of the paper was free because she works at a print shop. And
it's such a beautiful book.
Thank you. And then
yourself.
Yeah, and then it's printed on either my risograph that's right here, or Eileen Chavez and Sam Zabo's risograph. So like printed on friends' risograph or mine, where I really just paid for, you know, the $25 of black Rizzo ink. I think I had to buy 3 of them. And we did an edition of 1,000 that I printed and bound and did everything myself because it was my quarantine project. And I feel like at most I spent like $500 on all of the stuff to print it. So it was like almost all profit. So then that was a nice chunk of change that I, you know, saved on top of, you know, the monthly stuff and having a job and everything. And then I self-published a couple other comics and prints and stuff too. So I was kind of, it's like, you know, finding $20 from 5 different places, you know, kind of thing. But I don't know. You know, I started this series with Sprocket, and then that's like another, you know, $20 on top of that $20. And then I sell stuff with you, which is like every 3 months I get like randomly someone buys something for money, and I'm like, oh, that's my rent this month because someone just bought one thing, you know. So it's a nice, it's a thing where like some months I make, to me, a lot of money, and then some months I make not very much, and it just kind of balances out, which I feel like is every freelancer. But I don't know. I'm starting to get like a little bit into like thinking about doing like a little bit of like commercial illustration type stuff too on top of it, which I think would be fun to like add into the $20 from everyone sort of thing.
I feel like, I mean, I think it'd be exciting to see what you'd come up with. I think your style, it just screams you. And I mean, your poster work is so amazing. I'm always excited to see what it seems like you're always doing posters. But yeah, I'd be curious to see, you know, if you went more commercial, what it would be for and what it would you know, look like. It's exciting.
Like the goal is just to be in like a publication that like my mom knows what it would be, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's just
that's
what I'm thinking for next.
I'd have to get published in People magazine for my mom. No.
Honestly, that would be sick. A comic in People's Magazine? That would be
I know,
so good.
right? Well, speaking of publications, I'd love to hear. I've known a little for a little while about your Drawn Quarterly book deal, and I kept bugging you. I was like, when are they going to announce it? When are they going to announce it? And then suddenly it just was there last week. Very exciting, very exciting. I know it's a ways off, right?
Yeah,
The book will come out in 2026, which is kind of like typical of how long it takes to get these things together.
yeah.
And I imagine, you're still thinking about it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more, both about the process of getting a deal with a publisher like Drawn Quarterly, but also a little bit about what you're thinking for the book.
Yeah, I chose to have it be in 2026 because I kind of have the next 3 years really meticulously planned out.
You,
While I'm going to be working on the D and Q book, I'm going to be putting out 3 more issues of Pee Pee Poo Poo next year, and then probably a big book with Sprocket the following year. So then 2026 will be the D and Q book, and I'll be working on it throughout. So I figured while I'm working, I'm putting out these other issues and doing these other projects, giving me a solid 2.5 years to fully write and draw, because it's going to be like a 200-page book. So to fully write it all out and draw it all out and not feel rushed,
yeah,
with that, because I want to spend a lot of time on specifically that project. I'm very excited about it. And it's an idea I've had for a minute that I've kind of been messing around with in my sketchbooks for the past year or so, maybe a year and a half even. So to have it be in a point where it's ready to now be really worked on and be a book, I'm really excited. I've only inked like 4 pages of it, but I've got like 90 of it written. So I gotta like, and then the rest of it is like, it's there, but it's in like, it's not like fully scripted and paneled out, like I've got bits and pieces, and a lot of like iPhone notes, but yeah. So there will be work coming out by me every couple of
that's
months from
so
here
smart.
to the
That's
book.
so smart.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is such a kind of, unfortunately, like an ephemeral space, right? Where
Yeah.
if you go and kind of focus on one thing, the people always, for good and bad, they want more, right? They want more and more and more. And
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to balance all those things out. And whenever we talk and you say, this is the date, the third book of this series is going to be out at this time. And I just am so impressed with how far out you've mapped it. It's really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as long as I don't break my arm, it will be fine.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, as long as, nothing crazy happens, and I'm sure if something crazy happened, then it just get pushed back and that would be fine. But yeah, I work my best, and I figured this out. I work my best when I'm working on like 2 things at a time, because then I don't get burnt out on like whatever the
Mm-hmm.
idea is, and I stay excited about it. So I work really good when I'm doing more than one thing, and that's kind of also a strategy for working on this big book, because it's going to be one narrative and one thing the whole way through. So I figured also giving myself like a short story, comics anthology series would be a great way to balance that out, because then I
Right.
could, all of the jokes and scenes that go good in the book go in that pile, and then all of the other jokes and things that I think would be silly to draw that don't fit with that can still get used.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that feels good to have like kind of like when you're like cooking and you like have the thing that you make one night that's really specific, but then you have a bunch of leftover ingredients and like vegetables and stuff from it that then the next day you like throw into a pot of chili,
I like that.
and like
Yeah.
it's a bad analogy or whatever, but that's kind of how I thought of it when I first, started making this stuff. And there are definitely comics that are very intentionally in pee pee poo poo. It's not just like extra ideas, but
Sure.
some of the one-page gags are, which makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really excited about the D&Q book.
Did you have to pitch the book? How did that process work?
Okay, it's
As much as you can tell us.
I'm more than happy to tell. It happened in kind of a goofy way as well as my Sprocket pitch went, where Peggy Burns, who's the editor for Drawn Quarterly, like the main the boss. She's really cool. She started following me on Instagram, and I was very, very, what's a good word for it? Like, not like honored, but like, I don't know. I felt good that she was following me and liking my stuff.
Sure.
I think that she has really good taste. She's been in comics forever, and Drawn Quarterly is one of my favorite publishers, besides Shonen Jump, like Drawn Quarterly. I feel like,
Same, really.
I was like, oh my God, it's kind of starstruck, and she would like send me nice messages, and I'd be like, wow, thank you so much. Anytime someone you look up to supports you in that way, it's always a nice blushy time, So we were kind of like internet friends. And then they asked me to do a back quote for the back of Benji Nate's Girl Juice book, which is amazing and so funny. That's like, I think it was my favorite book that's come out so far, like this year. But
really?
It was so funny.
It's sitting in my room. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm so excited. It's one of those books. I feel like sometimes I have to like put a book to the side because I'm like so excited to read it that I can't just like rush it. I need to be in the right frame of mind for it. That's what that book is for me.
Yeah, totally. You should read it tonight, though.
Yes, I'll do it as soon as we get off.
You really should. It's like hilarious, but so I was just like, and they were like, if you do the back quote, we'll send you a free copy of the book. And I was like, oh my freaking God, okay, yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Even if they didn't send me a copy, I would have done it. But I was like, wow, copy of a book I really want to read?
Yeah.
Of course. And I sent them a couple options, and they were like, you're the first person who sent us a couple options for a back quote. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
I'm giving it away that it's my first time doing a back quote. But so they were like, what's your address? We will mail you the book. And I was like, oh, this is my address. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it. I let my friend borrow it, otherwise I'd pulled it up right now. But it rules. It's such a good book. But then they sent me a Christmas card, and on the Christmas card they were like, pitch to us. And I was like, okay, cool, that, of course.
There's some positive signs there.
Yeah, pretty. I was like, well, and I went home to see my mom and my brother for Christmas, and so I think they like sent, and then I got back like a couple weeks later, and there was just like this pile of mail, and I was like going through it, like going through like, oh, weird bill for my Wi-Fi or whatever, it was like mostly, it was like all random bullshit mail, and then it was like such a nice postcard. So that's how that happened. And then I DM'd Peggy and asked her for her email, and then over time I like pitched them and we talked about it, and I'm really excited. I really love their books, and working at the bookstore and ordering from them, it was so easy, and I feel like they promote their books pretty well, and they are really good at organizing events and stuff, and they just, from being you know, the person putting their books on the shelf at a store. Like, it really seems like they care a lot about their authors and are very good at, like, kind of championing the work. So I'm very excited to be working with them, you know?
It's kind of a big deal, I feel like.
Yes.
Can you tell us anything about the book itself? The
So, like, the concept
concept.
is that it's like Sex in the City, but everyone's like a lesbian who's like smoking weed.
Sold.
Yeah, it's gonna just be drama, and there's going to be a story as well. But you know, I don't want to give it away.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
No, I want it to be a surprise when we get to read it in a few years. So.
Yes, I'm really, really, really excited. And I'm really excited to be working with Tracy, who's editing it. They seem really cool, and I don't know. I'm really excited to be working. I was able to meet most of the D&Q team when I was in Toronto for TCAF, and they were just all so sweet, and I don't know, it's great. I'm so excited to draw it, you know?
Yeah. I love seeing the pictures of you at the Drawn and Quarterly dinner. I think were you in your set, maybe at one point?
I was sitting next to Seth and Chester and Joe, and they were all very talkative and nice.
That's awesome. It's such an interesting world to be part of. There's some characters, and it's nice to see you in that space too. You know, the next generation of stars.
I should start wearing a vintage suit everywhere. I think that'd be really cool.
Pocket watch and yeah, it should be like a zoot suit though. I feel like bring the zoot
maybe.
Suit.
I don't know about the zoot suit. I'm thinking just
a suit,
just a nice little like coat and tie, you know.
Okay.
And like maybe like a ridiculous top hat or something. But I don't know.
I'm behind you on that. Why don't we? We had a few questions come in. Why don't we take a couple of those? I know we're about.
Yeah, we could scroll up in the chat too.
Yeah. We'll do some like fun ones. What's the most frequent or annoying question that you get in your comments? Is it what pens do you use?
No, I use a GNib for everything, so that question's like really easy to answer. And then I use a 0.8 to do all of the line, like the boxes and paneling. I don't know if I have the most annoying question. I feel like I don't know.
Folks are pretty great. I mean, when I look through your comments, they're just like, I love you, and you know,
they're just
feel like
to
a lot
Brazil.
of like, annoying folks following you, but maybe there are. I don't know.
I mean, you know, every once in a while I have to block someone who seems too online for their own good, but I don't know. I feel like I've definitely gotten some annoying questions. I feel like I've gotten some annoying questions in more IRL than online.
Yeah.
Either like when I would be at work or when I would be like tabling at something. Every once in a while, you know, there was a couple times when I was working in the bookstore where someone would like be holding up my book and like explaining it to someone, not knowing that I made the book.
The worst. Yeah.
And that was like always kind of mortifying. unless it was like someone being really cool and happy and I love this book and this is
Yeah.
totally an accurate read of it versus, you know, a small ego death every time someone holds it up. But you know, just every once in a while, like, I don't know, someone at a Comic Con being like just like a jackass for no reason about like, have you read X-Men 61? And it's like, no, bro, that's not how I don't have any interests. Like, I don't know, when people try and like, you know, play that game, you know, where they're like, this comic reminds me of this comic from 1962 that
Yeah.
only had 200 copies made. And it's like, I have not read that, man. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's specific to comics per se, but definitely that vibe of like one-upsmanship of like, you read this or, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's pretty easy to ignore too.
Mhm.
So I think it just annoyed me more a while ago before I've,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
been more around it. But
Let's see. We talked a little bit about this, but do you have a plan for how many PP poo poos you're going to do? We know there's going to
yeah,
be 3 more.
there's one more this year. It comes out in November. Pretty excited. I just finished it, so it's off to the press. It's PP Poo Poo 80085.
I love it.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking of like the next numbers. I think it'd be funny to have like a 1984 one. Um, you know, and I've been looking at like calculator numbers
Hmm.
like besides the boobs one. So I'm thinking like maybe 7734. So like hell, but like upside down or something, or just something dumb like that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have that one out in November, and then I'm gonna put 3 more out next year. I'm thinking one of them is going to be called like the New York issue, and it's going to be a longer one. And then the other 2 are going to be, you know, normal classic 32-page ones. I might split up the New York one into 2 of them and then put out 4 more, you know.
Yeah.
I'm figuring I have to pencil some more pages out and kind of write some more stuff down to really give it, but between 3 and 4 probably, more after the one that comes out in November. And then, you know, hopefully a collection or something.
Oh yeah. I would love that.
So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that idea. And we're figuring out the logistics. It would be pretty thick at that point too, so that would be really nice. And we're thinking if we put together a collection of it, we'll include like a little bit of extra stuff, like mini like comics that I self-published between now and the book would come out, and like some extra pages and deleted scenes or whatever. So it's fun to brainstorm about that. You know, just keep it in your mind while you're making all the issues too. You know.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, but that's the future of PP Poo Poo is, I said the one out in November and then 3 or 4 more. So like 4 or 5 more in total. And honestly, a good bit of the rest of the one after the November one is like kind of written now. So that's nice. Feeling good about it. But
Awesome.
yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. It's like, it's you get, it takes so long to make a comic between like when you first think of it and when it's printed and in people's hands. So it's like I'm writing stuff now that people will see in a year or whatever, and it's fun because it'll be new to them then, but it's new to me right now. So it's really exciting for me right now. And just the best part is for me is getting to ink stuff. So like being right about to be able to ink stuff is very fun. So, you know.
Cool. I feel like this might be a good question to end on because you're such an advocate for other people's comics too. What comics do you like that you think are underrated or that you think that more folks should read?
I don't know. I like so many comics.
You're always sending me recommendations.
Yeah.
Everything that you recommend is always super fun to read. You know.
Thank you for saying that. I hope that's true. I think it's true because I don't know if comics rule, but I guess in Chicago, like I am really excited about obviously my friend Gabe Howell's work, but also my friend Bonnie's work. Her Instagram handle is Prime Slime. Her work is really, really good. And then my friend Sam Zabo, she just has a book out with Silver Sprocket. It's really funny. And all of her mini comics too are really good. Like, you're gonna obviously get the Sprocket comic, but like you should probably check out the minis too because they're really funny. And yeah, I don't know. There are just so many good cartoonists out there. Let me look at my bookshelf and think about what's new that I liked recently. This isn't new at all, but I recently, for the very first time, read Kaiji, Gambling Apocalypse. Just did a reprint of it. It's like this amazing manga. It's so good. And it's super popular, but I just had never read it. And I did, and I was like, dang, why have I not read that before? I really like this anthology that's called Cram that Andrew Alexander puts out. It's really good.
So good.
It's really good. I've been really...
The new one coming out too, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to read it. I don't remember who's in it, but I'm pretty excited. Also my buddy Eileen Chavez, their work is really good. Let me think. Dang, I feel like I could just read everyone's name off of every single one of these comics. But like everyone who's on this already knows everyone's name, I guess. But
it's a good list.
I don't know. That's my list right now, but I'm sure there could be a billion. I don't know. I just read this soccer manga called Blue Lock. That was like really good. The Leo Fox Rocket book Prokaryote season, pretty banging.
Athenium Grant winning Leo Fox.
That's good taste right there. Yeah.
That book is amazing.
Yeah.
I love their art.
Yeah, this is my first time reading their stuff, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many amazing.
I think that's a good list. I feel like you could have your own like YouTube channel where you just gave recommendations.
Yeah, I did that all day at work for so many years that like I'm like, oh yeah, I could just keep going, but no one wants to hear that.
I think a lot of people want to hear it, but
I don't know if you can be up that late though.
I'm an old person. I got kids. So is there anything else that you want to talk to folks about? Anything that we missed?
I don't know. Should we read some of the questions that people left in the little group chat here? Is there a way to do that?
Oh yeah. Is there any? Feel free to send some questions if you haven't already.
People have.
How did you write "Girl in the World"?
Wait, what? What was it?
How did you write "Girl in the World"? The question.
I just hoped for the best, and I was like, this seems fun. Let's do that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of trial and error. Is how I wrote that.
Yeah. Scrolling through. If anyone has a question, feel free to. A lot of people are just saying how awesome you are.
Do I read any of the Chicago-centered female cartoon comic creators like Lily Carré, Lara Park, or Lucy Knisley? Yeah, all their work rules. Lily Carré's book, I think it's called Heads or Tails, was one of the first like indie comics I read when I started reading stuff that wasn't just comics about fighting. And it was really good. And I've seen like a bunch of her animations and stuff just living here, like at different galleries and stuff, and they're always amazing. And Lara Park's comics rule. I think they're in France now. I don't know. Yeah, and Lucy Knisley's work I'm super familiar with. I like that one about cooking. That one rules. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like those are all people slightly older than me too. I feel like that was like kind of the crowd before me. But let's see. Spike rules too. Iron Circus is great. I feel like they do some pretty cool books. I like the commitment to doing a lot of anthologies because I really like anthologies. Let's see.
The question about how you develop your lettering style. I love how you letter.
Oh yeah. It just, I have really bad handwriting, so I had to really, really put a lot of time and practice into writing out the words for out the words, out the dialogue, out the text, writing out all the text. Like I just practiced for months and months and months. And how it looks now is like a way when I was writing it out with again like a G-nib. That's all I use. It's what eventually came naturally, like the kind of font I've made is just the way that it worked the best when I was moving my hand. So it was really natural. Like that's just what came about after practicing for, a couple years and trying to figure out something that worked and looked okay. Yeah.
I think it's gorgeous.
Thank you. I have to put a lot of effort into it because if I don't, it like suddenly becomes unreadable. Yeah. I kind of have to think of it as part of the image,
Mm-hmm.
Or suddenly all of the letters are connected and it looks like a blob and everyone's like, what's that word? But
well, I feel like I've kept you a long time, and I feel like we've had a good conversation. Where can people find you? They can find you on Instagram. They're literally watching a thing that's connected to your name.
They can find me on Instagram.
You're most of your posts are on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, but it's like I'm not gonna post anything on Twitter that I haven't posted on Instagram unless it's something that like I wouldn't pass the censorship Instagram vibes, And I mostly just use Twitter to stay up to date on what cartoonists who don't use Instagram are drawing, or like it's mostly just for memes,
Yeah.
It's like,
and Twitter is going through a whole thing now too. So like, for the business side of stuff, it's just like they've like killed the algorithm, so nothing really gets out anymore. So it's almost a complete waste of time. But you've been on it so long, you feel obligated to like continue to interact with it. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I prefer Instagram, but I don't love all the ads that have been popping up too. I feel like Instagram's changed a lot too. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for that new beautiful social media that can take all of my time and energy. But,
I would love to not be on social media, but you kind of need to promote things. So I owe a lot of the success to Athenium because of social media. So can't complain too much about it.
Yeah, and I definitely owe a lot of my success as well, just for like reaching people through social media. I feel like it's been a really instrumental tool, or at least one of them. Like I feel like it's like, social media is important, but so is going to cons, and so is, having stuff in stores. I feel like it's kind of like a nice pyramid of what's all important.
Yeah.
I do. I have talked to people who I feel like are just a little bit more worried about social media than, like, put a little bit more effort into that than they do into like tabling or selling stuff in stores. And I really feel like
I like that pyramid, the triangle.
Yeah,
I
I don't know. I'm like a little stoned, but
no, I think it's important. Honestly, like with Athenium, I talk to other art reps, and they're like, you can go to cons or whatever, but you can sell as much online just through your social media presence. And honestly, connecting and networking with folks at cons, even if I don't sell a single piece of art while I'm at a space, I always connect with someone who is going to connect me with some other collector, or I, touch base with a cartoonist that I never would have dreamed that I'd be able to work with. And it's just because, like, I was at dinner with somebody and they're like sitting next to us and they see my shirt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally. And I'm dang, I should have worn my shirt.
No, we can't wear the same shirt.
But no, yeah, I feel like, even not from like even a money angle, like going, obviously, like ideally you would at the very least be able to break even and whatnot. But like I feel like going to cons and meeting other people in this industry is just as important as having a social media and printing stuff. Like it's really nice too. I don't know, especially getting to meet people you really like and admire and think are really cool. I don't know. And then you get to work with them or just hang out with them or buy their thing from them and say, thank you so much. Here's $12.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, I have anxiety around being around a ton of people as well. But if you look at it as just like a cool place to have fun with people, and yeah, I mean, you want to break even. You don't want to lose money if you can. But I get a lot of energy from those. I get exhausted, but I get a lot of energy and feel like super positive about the space, especially at a lot of small press cons, I think, are really exciting spaces.
Definitely. I fully agree. I don't know. Speaking of small press cons, someone asked con plans for the balance of the year. I do have con plans. I'm going to try and say these all out loud in order.
Okay.
Because that's how scheduling works. There's SPX.
Yep. I'll be there.
I'm going to go to SPX. I think me and Gabe are going to split a table.
Nice.
Or I'll table with Sprocket, but I think Gabe just got one. So I don't know. I've never gotten into the lottery. So I don't know. But he got offered like a full table, so we might split that so that way I can bring prints and stuff too. Then we want to get those like hard hats that have like beer on the side. And just put like an energy drink or like water into both of them, and then just be at the table drinking water like in a goofy way. And then I'm gonna do CXC in Columbus. Really excited. So sick. Did it last year for the first time and loved it. And there's so many cool people in Columbus, and they just put a lot of time and effort into organizing that show, and it really showed when I was there. The panels were amazing. The people there were great. The comics were, I don't know. I had a really good time.
Yeah.
And then I'll just get to hang out with MS too, so that rules.
Yeah.
Are you going to that one? Are you going to see?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. We will all get dinner or something. And then I'm going to do CXC, SPX.
Are you gonna stop by A2CAP the weekend after? Are you too busy?
I think I gotta go to bed. I would love to say yes, but I know when I do multiple things in a row, it just like makes me
Oh yeah,
so
it's a
tired.
terrible idea. I tried to get
Yeah.
Avi to come out for it, but they are too busy.
Yeah.
So, but I gotta
Um,
go to my hometown one. But have you changed your mind? We'd love to have you.
I would love to come if it was,
The
if I don't make it this year, I'll go next year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then
But,
the weekend following A2CAP is
and the what?
the weekend after A2CAP
Is
is
Partners
partner.
and Sons. So that'll be me and Marina's show. And then, the next day is the Philadelphia Comics Fest that Partners is organizing. So I'll be
I'm tabling this.
Me too.
Anyway, it's exciting.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
Someone just said I heard Crumb is coming to A2 Cap.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. The big.
Why is he? I feel like him lost in Ann Arbor is like really funny to think about. But
From Lost in Ann Arbor. That'd be a good comment.
yeah, honestly. And then I am applying to Short Run, so hopefully I'll go to Short Run in Seattle. I've never been to the West Coast before, so I'm excited
I'm going
about that.
out there. I went for the first time last year. It was amazing. That show, there's like so much energy, and it's one day, so it's just like intense, super intense, and you're done.
I tabled next to Megan Kelso at Cake, and she was telling me about it, and it just sounded so sick. So I'm definitely applying and crossing my fingers that I get in.
Yeah.
But I've never been, so I think this is the year. And then I'm doing something unannounced for the following week, and then I'm gonna see Liz Fair in San Francisco with Avi. It's gonna be pretty epic. And then I think that's it for this fall. I think. I don't know. I might do like a pop-up somewhere or something. I'm trying to get in on one of those Frog Farm shows that's happening that Alexander Laird has been organizing. That's in New York. It's really cool. And they just started. And if you live in New York or around New York, like you should probably hit them up about being in a future one. I think they're trying to do like a monthly comic fest, like a small pop-up one. But like small being like still a lot of people, or like a bi-monthly thing or something. Really exciting. So and they also just started a micro press too, also called Frog Farm. So they just put out Grayson Barrow's new comic. That's really, really, really funny. So also highly recommend that. Yeah.
You sound busy. You sound like you're scheduled out for the next several years.
I'm scheduled out until the holiday season, and then I'm like on the beach, I guess, for that, and then I'm back at working in on the book. So,
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. So again, congratulations on the Drawn and Quarterly book that will be out in 2026.
Yes.
Very exciting. And we have
I'm pretty pumped.
Plenty of pee-pee poo-poos to keep us warm and cozy while we're waiting for the big book.
Yes. I am very excited for the big book and the pee-pee poo-poos and all of it. I'm also excited to go to bed soon, honestly.
Me too. Well, I think, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm glad that I could celebrate the announcement of the new book and to hear, more about what you're working on and where you've been and where you're going. So thanks so much for chatting, and thanks everybody in the chat for joining and your lovely questions.
Yeah.
If you want to buy any original art from Caroline, just go to atheniumcomicart.com Also, if there's a page or anything you're interested in, just shoot me a message. We're always happy to see if something's available, even if it's not on the website.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, and have a great
Yep.
night.
Great talking to you.
All right, bye.
Bye.